The Alliance of American Football. It's almost been half a decade since the AAF folded and left many football players without a job. Of course, some would get jobs in the NFL and some would sign with other football leagues. Players would make it big because of the AAF, like Atlanta legend kicker Younghoe Koo, who had earned a Pro Bowl with the Atlanta Falcons, and the Orlando Apollo, now Cleveland Brown, Dearness Johnson. But arguably the most discussed position in football is the quarterback. Today I'll be going over all of the quarterbacks that signed with the AAF and where they are now. I'll be splitting between the two conferences in the AAF, the East Conference and the West Conference. Today I will be covering the East Conference, which consists of the Orlando Apollos, Memphis Express, Birmingham Iron, and the Atlanta Legends. AAF quarterbacks. Where are they now? As the Orlando Apollos and Birmingham Iron were the only two teams that made the playoffs, that meant that the Memphis Express and the Atlanta Legends were the first to be eliminated from the playoffs. Let's go by point differential and talk about what was my favorite team in the AAF, the Memphis Express, who went 2-6 in their short season and had arguably one of the worst quarterback situations in the AAF. Let's start off with the Express's Week 1 starter, Christian Hackenberg. After being a 5-star prospect out of high school, Hackenberg would commit to Penn State. He would start his freshman year under Coach Bill O'Brien and blow up. Hackenberg would end breaking multiple freshman records and one Penn State record, passing yards in a single game with 454, and one Penn State record, passing yards in a single game with 154. He also had the career passing yard record with 8,427, but would later be beaten by Trace McSorley.
I'm your favorite quarterback, they call me Trace McSorley.
Hackenberg would start for Penn State for the next 2 seasons after that, going 7-6 for both seasons and missed the playoffs. Hackenberg would declare for the 2016 NFL Draft during his junior year.
With the 51st pick in the 2016 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select quarterback Christian Hackenberg, Penn State.
Okay. We got our QB. Now, we got our QB. We're talking.
The New York Jets would draft Hackenberg with the 51st pick in the second round. After a dreadful preseason, Hackenberg would still make the final roster, but as the 4th string behind Ryan Fitzpatrick, Geno Smith, and Bryce Petty. He would only be active for the last game of the season, not even holding a snap his rookie season. After Ryan Fitzpatrick and Geno Smith left the Jets the offseason, Hackenberg would have the opportunity to compete for the starting quarterback role against Bryce Petty and newly signed Josh McCown. After a more successful preseason, Hackenberg would still be the 3rd string behind McCown and Petty. After Petty would get injured, Hackenberg would be active as a backup for Week 1, but was demoted after Petty recovered. Hackenberg would be inactive until Week 14, where Josh McCown would be placed on IR after breaking his hand. He would be active as Bryce Petty's backup for the last 3 games, but not play a single snap in 2017. Hackenberg would be traded to the Raiders in 2018, but would be waived a month later. He would spend time with the Eagles and the Bengals, but end up as a free agent by November. He would be drafted by the Express in the second round of the quarterback AAF draft. Hackenberg would struggle as a starter, as he would lose the first 3 games, throwing no touchdowns and 4 interceptions. He would eventually be benched for Zach Manberger, losing the starting role. Even when Manberger would get injured 2 weeks later, Express put in Brandon Silvers instead of Hackenberg. And to make matters worse, the Express would sign Johnny Manziel mid-season, making Hackenberg the 3rd stringer when the league folded. In June 2020, Hackenberg would retire from football and attempt a career as a pitcher in baseball. Shockingly, no one bit. In March 2021, Hackenberg would be hired as a quarterback coach for Winslow Township High School, where he currently resides. As Hackenberg struggled as a starter, it would be Zach Manberger that led the Express to their first win. After a successful high school career, Zach would commit to Georgia, where he would get dropped from the university. Manberger would plead guilty for 2 misdemeanor sexual battery charges, stemming from an incident at a bar in Georgia. After dealing with probation, Manberger would attend Butler Community College as their starting quarterback in 2010, where he blew up. He would take the team 11-1 and win the JUCO championship, throwing 32 touchdowns and only 4 picks. Manberger would transfer to LSU after that season, where he would have the starting quarterback job in 2012. He would take the Tigers to 10-3 and only throw 12 touchdowns and 7 picks. 2013 would be a game changer for Manberger, as he would go 9-3, throwing 22 touchdowns and only 8 picks. Manberger would tear his ACL on the final game of that season. He would still participate in LSU's Pro Day and even graduate with a bachelor's degree for general studies. Manberger would be drafted by the Tennessee Titans in the 2014 NFL Draft in the 6th round. He would be the third stringer behind Jake Locker and Charlie Whitehurst. In Week 3, Locker would hurt his wrist, making Manberger the backup in Week 4. But due to poor performance, Manberger played the game, throwing 17 yards and an interception. He would be back to third string after Locker was healthy by Week 5. After 2 straight losses, the Titans would start Manberger over Locker and Whitehurst for Week 8. Manberger would lose to the Texans 30-16, going 27-41 for 299 yards with 2 touchdowns and an interception. He would miss the last 3 games due to a shoulder injury. Manberger would lose all 6 games he started, going 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and 1,412 passing yards. Jake Locker would retire after that season, and the Titans would draft Marcus Mariota in 2015. That being said, Manberger would still play 7 games and start 4 due to Mariota getting injuries, and Manberger would lose all 4 starts, giving him the career of 0-10. He would be cut after that season and would be on the Chargers for the 2016 preseason, but was a final roster cut and signed with the Steelers, being the third string behind Ben Roethlisberger and Landry Jones. He would be active for only 4 games that season, and after the Steelers drafted Joshua Dobbs, Manberger would be cut in 2017. After a season for the West in the Spring League, Manberger would sign and be drafted by the Express in 2018. He would be the third stringer behind Hackenberg and Brandon Silvers, but was thrown onto the field in Week 3 against the Orlando Apollos after a poor performance by Hackenberg and Silvers being injured. Though losing 21-17, Manberger would throw 2 touchdowns and secure the starting job for Week 4 against the San Diego Fleet. Manberger would go 18 of 25 passes for 174 yards and a passing touchdown, and also ran for another as Memphis would win 26-23, the first victory in team history. The next week against the Salt Lake Stallions, Manberger would leave the game early after an injury. After the team would sign Johnny Manziel, Manberger would be placed on injury reserve, where he would stay for the rest of the league's short life. After being passed on by the XFL, Manberger would go back to the Spring League in 2020, being back up to now quarterback Brian Scott. After the Spring League, he would be hired as an offensive coordinator for Hillsborough High School and an assistant football coach for Father Ryan High School. In 2022, Manberger was hired to be a football assistant under Nick Saban's Alabama team. Through all of the struggling and injured quarterbacks from the Express, Brandon Silvers would be the last man standing when the league collapsed. After being a 3-star prospect, Silvers would sign with Troy University, where he would play all 4 seasons and pass for 10,677 yards with a 64.4% completion rating. He ended his college career with a passing rating of 135.8, having first-team All-Sun belt in 2016 and NCAA rookie completion percentage record in 2014 by 70.5, beating Sam Bradford's 69.5. Silvers would go undrafted in 2018, attending the Saints minicamp but left with no contract. He would be drafted by the Express and made the roster as the backup to Christian Hackenberg. By Week 6, he would be the de facto starter for the Express due to Hackenberg's poor performance and Manberger's injury. Silvers would share snaps with Johnny Manziel and led the Express to their second victory against the Iron. Manziel would be injured mid-game, making Silvers play majority snaps and almost pulled an upset against the Apollos. Silvers would start 2 games for the Express, passing 799 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks, and having a 64% completion rating when the league folded. Silvers would sign with the Jets after the death of the AAF, but was released after the 2019 draft. In October, Silvers would be allocated to the Seattle Dragons of the XFL as a Tier 1 quarterback. Silvers would start 2 games for the Dragons before being benched for BJ Daniels in Week 3. Silvers would throw 6 touchdowns to 4 picks and have a 70.7 passer rating. After the XFL, Brandon Silvers would play for the Conquerors in the Spring League, along with former Apollo Kevin Anderson. In May 2022, Silvers would sign to the Kingpins of the FCF Football League. Silvers would have 2 throws for 11 yards and a run for 13. Kingpins would go 3-4, being the bottom of the NFT teams and miss the playoffs. After the FCF stint, Silvers would go back to the XFL, being selected by the Wade Phillips Houston Roughnecks.
Running back line. 2nd and 2, empty backfield, the pump fake, throw over the middle, on the money, complete. Touchdown, Travell Harris. Night for Houston on offense. Silvers looking for a deep shot, and he's got him! John
Yeah, so Wade is asking about a warn, and we will warn early when it's close. But then it's not the feet. This is actually a big play here, so I don't want to take away from that.
Yeah, I think Brandon Silvers is doing just fine. And now, the quarterback that brought the most heat, Johnny Football. What can I say that isn't known about Manziel at this point? After a successful high school career, he would commit to Texas A&M in 2011. He would play in 2012 and 2013, where he would explode in college and win a Heisman Trophy. After a possible stint in MLB baseball, Manziel would forego the 2014 NFL Draft, where the Cleveland Browns drafted him with the 22nd pick. After a rough rookie season with only 2 game starts, Manziel would do somewhat worse, as he would only start 6 games and was even benched because of videos leaked of him partying during the bye week. With 2 horrific seasons in his belt, Manziel would be investigated for a domestic violence incident. The Browns would release Manziel in 2016. After the release, he would spend a couple years with the CFL, most notably with the Montreal Alouettes, until being cut in February 2019 in the fact of breaking his contract with the CFL. He would join the AAF and sign with the Express to replace an injured Zach Manberger. As a backup to Brandon Silvers, he completed 3 of 5 passes for 48 yards, along with running for 20 yards for the Express' second win of the season. The next week, he would gain a concussion, keeping him out for the rest of the last game for the Express, only throwing 2 of 3 passes for 13 yards and an interception. Manziel would retire from football after the league folded until December 2020, when he signed with the fan-controlled Football League and played for the Zappers, though mentioning that he was done with American professional football. He and his old teammate Josh Gordon would take the Zappers to the semifinals, where he would be benched for the loss. In the next season, he would be on and off the field for the Zappers as they won the People's Championship against the Board 8 Yacht Football Club. As of right now, it is uncertain if Manziel will play another season with the FCF. Out of all these quarterbacks, none of them were protected in the quarterback draft, but Troy Cook was. Coming out of high school, he would commit to Florida State in 2013, being the 3rd string behind Jacob Coker and the future Heisman winner Jameis Winston. He would transfer to the University of Tennessee Martin in 2014, where he would play 2 seasons, starting 16 games and throwing for 3,325 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 18 interceptions. Cook would go undrafted in 2018. He would be protected by the Express as the first pick of the AAF quarterback draft in 2018. But before he can shine in the AAF, he would be cut before the season started. After the cut, he would sign with the Calgary Stampeders of the CFL in May 2019. He would play the preseason, but ultimately get cut before the season started. Cook has since moved on from that position and is presumably done with football.
Take us move on home.